It is my pleasure, my honor, to bring to you today, for the first time in some time, Lindsay Wagner and Mr. Lee Majors together on the Dragoncon stage.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't remember us kissing that day.
It's been a long time. What I want to know is, in all those kisses, how did you always end up on the right side of the frame?
Oh, yeah.
Did you notice that? We were always exactly the same.
Well, you said the other side was your best side.
When you get it.
Yeah. Always the lady.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, thanks for being here. Thanks for being such big fans over the years. We enjoyed doing the work for you, and glad somebody watched it.
So why don't we get the questions open here now? I didn't get a chance before I came in. Oh, there we go. Okay.
This question is for Lindsay.
A little louder, please.
This question is for Lindsay. Over 20 years ago, I read Starlog magazine, and you were talking about vegetarianism, and it planted a seed. And it helped me over time to become a vegetarian and to change my mind of mainstream thinking in so many ways. And it has improved my life. Your cookbook is a staple in our household. How has your views of animal activity and protection affected you in so many of the episodes? Especially, we noticed the Bionic dog episode, you added more of yourself into it than obviously what was in the script. So how did that affect the Bionic woman?
Well, I think it's just always really been a part of my life. I started into vegetarianism when I was 18. You know? So, and that was, well, did you do that?
I didn't do it.
He answered awful quick, didn't he? I didn't do it. So I mean, it was always there for me from that time. You know, I didn't write the cookbook until it came out. Well, I started it, which takes a long time to compile all that stuff and to do that. I started it right after I had my second child, so I was 36, 37, right in there, and I think it finally came out in 1989 or 90. And that was because people kept saying, you have these children, how are you doing that? What do you feed them? You know, that kind of thing. And I was answering so many questions everywhere I went. I said, okay, I'm writing a book. So, how did it affect the Bionic woman? I don't know. It was just part of who I was. I mean, and it isn't that I say that man doesn't have the right to eat an animal. It doesn't mean that I, in all those years since I was 18, that I've never had any meat or fish. Because there's been a couple of short periods where I felt like I wasn't feeding myself correctly, because if you're going to be a vegetarian, you need to feed yourself properly, or you're going to get sick. You're going to be undernourished rather than overnourished, which will also make you sick. Isn't that overnourished is kind of contradiction in terms there, but so I just think the caring about all life is maybe more specifically the answer to your question. I'm seeing all of that as a part of the creation that we are all a part of. And I think we humans forget that at times. We forget that we're part of affecting each other every day by what we do and what we think. And we certainly forget at times that we're part of all the rest of it, the animals, the trees, the nature, and whatnot. And I think the coming generations are getting more and more cognizant of that than the previous generations. I mean, we used to be very, as people, humans, we used to be very in touch with that. And then we kind of lost it after the industrial age. So I think that arc hopefully is kind of completing itself, and maybe we're going to come back to understanding our connectedness to the whole now.
Okay, I think our time is up.
You know, the problem with Atlanta is they ask really good questions, and you know, I'm kind of a sucker for a good question.
Over on this side. Here we go.
Hi.
She's up there.
Can you hear me?
I can see you now, yeah.
Okay. When I was a little girl, you both were my heroes. You were really the epitome of true love. And at the point in the series when Jamie Summers lost her memory and didn't remember the $6 Million Man, I remember sitting in my mother's lap, crying my eyes out. So much so that she told me if this was going to affect me so much, I couldn't watch anymore. So the question that I have is, I'm sure I wasn't the only one, and I'm wondering, I mean, there wasn't the internet then. Was there just a huge fan outcry? I'm curious what kind of response you had and how you all dealt with that.
Go ahead, Lindsay. You're the one that lost your memory, I'm about there now.
I was going to say.
But I was off in those scenes and crying and hoping that she got it back. So, how was it during that period, by the way?
Forgetting you? I think the actual part of waking up and forgetting him was overshadowed, quite frankly, publicly by the fact that they killed her the episode before. That was the public outcry. That was the huge outcry. It wasn't, as you know, probably intended to be a series. But people loved the I mean, the $6 Million Man was kind of the quintessential father figure, if you will, kind of took the place of the previous generation's Superman, let's say. And that iconic role model of power and compassion. And then when they created the counterpart, the quintessential mother figure, well, she was like, oh, you know, this archetype, these archetypes were complete for the masculine and feminine. Whether you were an adult or a child who doesn't think about it, they just feel it and absorb it. And when Jamie died, which was just because they wanted to create a little boost, like it was very common in the 70s to do that, to just give a little flair to the show. You give the star a love interest and then somehow you get them out of the way. Well, they couldn't figure out what to do with her, so they conked her. And it was traumatizing. And I was had left the studio by then and was going off to I was making a film in Canada when I got the thing, they want to bring you back to life. I go, no, I'm not at Universal anymore, I don't want to be there. They said, no, you don't understand, this is like serious stuff. And they said that all these letters had come in, and so that was the big outcry. And the way they actually convinced me to come back and do it was somebody from the network. I think it was Children's Hospital in New York and one in Boston. They had even written a letter to the network saying what irresponsible programming, you know, you don't understand what you did, you create. Kids in the hospital were traumatized, like children across the country. And so they were also, oh my God, we got to bring her back to life. And that's how all of a sudden she got the idea of her having been, what was I, cryogenically stored. They put me in the freezer or something. And then they brought me back to life, and they didn't want to tell him because they didn't want to, no, you never remember that. So that's how the second two-parter came about, was literally by public demand. Which is why I'm always telling audiences, please use the power you have. You don't get it. You have a lot more power to see what you want to see on television and not see what you want to see by writing to the networks, writing to the producers. You know, you made this happen. You made Jamie Summers happen as a series. So anyway, that went on and aired, and they said, okay, now it's fine, now we can get rid of her alive. We'll send her off to teach school at the Army base, and again, the outcry was, we want more, and so all of a sudden there we had a series. So, and that was, in the shadow of all of that, the forgetting him was, I think, overshadowed, in answer to your question, by, I mean, certainly for some individuals, or for many individuals, for the children and whatnot, it was sad, but at least she was living. And I think that was, I think it would have been more traumatic even had it, because they at least got to see each other, and it was sad, but I mean, that was also a time in our culture when divorces were happening more. So I think children were more sensitive to that because they weren't used to love that wasn't forever after. You know? So I think it might have been culturally more difficult too for young people.
Lee, I'm just curious, you know, you told stories, both of you, about experiences you've had with the popularity of $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman, how it impacted your personal life or what have you when you couldn't go out in certain places. Do you have any memories of people possibly accosting you over the death of Jamie Summers? I'm just curious if you had anything like that.
No, all I got was guys in the bars wanting to arm wrestle me. If I may, let me go back a little bit further than that. Something that's explained on the Bionic Woman is that there's a little story that I don't know if I told you, but we had done the first year of the show, the $6 Million Man, and you know, if you spend that many episodes and that much time with a crew in close quarters, and you've got a crew of about 30, 40 guys. I said to the producers, I said, you know, I haven't had a love interest yet, and I'm tired of looking at these hairy-legged guys. So that's when they put their heads together and they came up with this love of my life, past girlfriend that I knew in high school and maybe college, and so we looked her up. And it was a blessing. It was great to have her on the show, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And I'm glad she got spin off on her own show. And they did come to me with Max, that was his name, right? Max the dog. I said, you know, I don't really want a dog. I'm like, Max, I like dogs. I said, well, maybe Lindsay'd like that. Basically, how you got Max, too. But anyway, that was kind of the start of how it came. And I even was so, you know, wanting a love affair that, you know, Steve Austin, that I even think I wrote a little song, a love song for Jamie, and I think they used it in when you came on the scene, which was very, very nice. And so, looking back at that clip, it brings back a lot of great memories, and that we shared a lot. We're just glad that everybody else loved it too. You know, in that particular period, I was doing a show, and I was also involved with another lady who happened to have a number of top 10 in the show, also with Charlie's Angels. So it was hard for Charlie's Angels and $6 Million Man to go out at all. So it was a lot of time spent at home, and plus, you know, you're both working anyway. You're working for 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and so the weekends were precious, and you kind of wanted to hang. So that was, I never got, only going, you know, like TMZ now, I don't know how we would have stood it back then. Now they have so much internet, so much quick stuff, Twitter, and I just saw him in the bathroom, he's here. So it's a lot worse now for the young kids that are out there starring in the series than it was back then. So, but I pity these youngsters.